Well, thank you very much for joining us for the last session of the day, which is always tough. It sort of comes after that tiredness wall that you have at a conference. I have to admit, I had that tiredness wall just before lunch when I turned to Alex at lunch and said, "Are you appearing on any panels today?" And Alex said, "I'm on your panel this afternoon." And I went, "Oh, yeah, that's right." So welcome. First, I'll repeat the format that we used this morning. So I'll just start with the panelists, and I'll ask them to briefly introduce themselves, and I'll start with Alex.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you for inviting me to the panel and remembering. I am the current chairman of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I've been the chairman for the last 2 years, into a second term. In my day job, I am Chief Executive of Hong Kong for CIBC and Managing Director of Asia Pacific for our corporate bank and our global transaction bank. I've been with CIBC here in Hong Kong for just over 6 years. Prior to that, I was with 4 other banks. I've been in banking for over 32 years, primarily in the corporate banking space, of which 27 of those years have been here in Asia, Hong Kong primarily, and Singapore. That's me.
Thank you. Michel.
Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Let me first congratulate CanCham HK for a wonderful event. Patrick, Madeleine, Alex, all speakers were excellent, and it's quite intimidating to be here later. So I'm Michel Constantin, Director of the Quebec Government Office in Shanghai, and we have the delicious challenge of trying to cover the whole of the south of China, including Hong Kong and Macau, from Shanghai. For more than 60 years, Quebec has developed its international network, taking the privilege of using the Canadian Constitution as our basic for international action, because Canada is a federation. It comes therefore with benefits, and our doctrine, the Gérard-Lajoie doctrine, says that what is of provincial responsibility within Canada should be and is of provincial responsibility outside of Canada. So we have now 30 or so international offices. We have our own Indo-Pacific strategy, and we have our own exports organization, Investment Québec, that also looks for investment. And I try to be a go-to person into bringing you Quebec here, and Quebec companies, and culture, and education, and natural resources availabilities. Thank you.
Merci, Michel. Jimmy, to you.
Thank you, C.G. Charles. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here joining this panel, and great thanks once again to the Canadian Chamber for having me today. My name is Jimmy Cheng. I'm currently Deputy Director General of the Office for Attracting Strategic Enterprises, or OASIS in short, if you like. For my career, it has largely been related to investment promotion. I joined OASIS about 5 months ago. Before that, I had worked with another investment promotion agency called Invest Hong Kong for 21 years. A bit about OASIS. It was established in December 2022, reporting directly to the Financial Secretary in order to attract and support strategic innovation and technology enterprises from around the globe to set up or expand business in Hong Kong. We provide strategic enterprises with our one-stop, tailor-made business facilitation services to make their setting up or expansion in Hong Kong as easy as possible. In particular, we do a lot of work to help our investors to, for example, plug into our I&T ecosystem, developing partnerships on various fronts. We do also a lot to help them identify funding options, to identify business opportunities in Hong Kong, and also to access to various support programs offered by the Hong Kong government. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. So our session is titled Business Growth Strategies in Challenging and Changing World Markets. Could you please identify one change or challenge that you believe is important to your organization? And Jimmy, we'll start with you.
Okay. I guess being an investment promotion agency in Hong Kong, we definitely are seeing global geopolitical tensions being one of the most important challenges that we are facing in doing our work and also achieving our organizational objectives. For example, how may the escalation of trade conflicts affect the Chinese economy, as well as global inflation rates and interest rates. And all these will certainly have implications on global FDI in terms of its growth and also flow direction, for example. And also more relevant to us at Oasis, how may the U.S. policy related to export controls on certain advanced technologies, notably AI, quantum computing, semiconductors, going to affect mainland China and Hong Kong, especially the development of our I&T industry, because all these will have impact on, for example, our access to some cutting-edge technologies, potential R&D collaborations between the U.S. and China, and obviously the global industry supply chain, and not to mention potential U.S. investments or even international investments into Chinese tech companies. So all these are very legitimate considerations for us. Unfortunately, or fortunately, geopolitics is really something out of our control. Nonetheless, as many of you know, here Hong Kong always embraces the spirit of international free trade and investment. So we'll continue our investment promotion efforts in some advanced economies, for example, in North America, in Europe, and also we diversify our partnerships with other emerging economies like those in the ASEAN or the Middle East, so as to ensure that we continue to receive a steady inflow of FDI, international investments into Hong Kong. So we continue to do our best.
Thank you, Jimmy. À vous, Michel.
Well, Jimmy, thank you for raising the topic of what I call quite often the diplomatic tensions. This is the elephant in the room. In my daily job, it's an issue. And for example, trying to raise awareness of opportunities in Hong Kong or in China, we face that deficit of positive image. The notoriety of China is sadly affected by those tensions, and we do on our, when we talk about resource allocations, this enters into the conversation, the decisions of the government. Our own pension fund, the Quebec Public Pension Fund, which is quite has a strong heft, financial heft, has pulled out of China and is now based in Singapore for Asia. Our own Invest Quebec has pulled as sole person responsible for China out of China. This affects our capacity to promote, create partnerships, and we hope that trust can be rebuilt between Canada and China. It'll take a few years, that's for sure, but it's necessary to help bring back confidence. And I don't think we'll ever reach the exuberance that we had in the 2010s, but at the very least, the world needs China, and Canada, Quebec, and the world also are needed in China. I think the dialogue is necessary, and prosperity can only work if it's mutually beneficial.
Merci. Alex.
Sure. I'll put on my banker hat. One of the biggest challenges has been sort of credit growth in the banking industry. But maybe going back to that, the root causes of the slower growth in credit, slower demand in credit, there are many opportunities. Earlier we heard there's this lack of recycling of capital in private credit industry, for example, or the private equity industry, sorry. So those are some of the things, but the key real root cause of all this lack of sort of growth, and credit drives growth, frankly, leverage drives growth, is actually confidence, right? And there is a lack of confidence in the markets, just generally, and the root cause of that lack of confidence, from what I'm seeing, is this uncertainty in the markets, right? Uncertainty in regulations, uncertainty in what's happening in governments, and it's coming from places like the U.S. It's coming from places like China, and when you have the U.S. and China, those are two of the largest markets in the world. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and right now with that uncertainty and lack of confidence, there isn't as much business momentum. Right, so I think those are some of the challenges. That's the banking hat there.
Okay, thank you. Throughout the day, we've heard about, amongst other things, leadership and innovation, and these are both very integral to overcoming challenges and adapting to change. So what other attributes, skills, talents do individuals or organizations need to be successful in today's environment? And we will start. Michelle.
All right, I need my cheat sheet over here. This morning it was quite interesting. John Witt mentioned the importance of consistency and persistence in working on the market, working to create growth. The same is true when we look from my perspective in China. We see many of the businesses that are gone had a short-term, deliver real quick returns instead of having the long-term view. So this remains, and it was mentioned this morning by many of the participants, the importance of looking ahead, of not working for the quick buck, but really trying to work over a horizon of many years. So for us, I'll come back to our pension fund. That was an idea that was created in the early 60s. France doesn't have the same type of pension fund, so they have to rely on taxation to pay for the pensions every year. Quebec, we create a pension fund that today is really among the first and foremost of its kind in the world. Canada has the same type of, and that was thinking long term. Working on our relationship with China, we need to remain persistent in trying to reach long-term goals. It is simply the way to really build long-term prosperity, because diplomatic tensions can lapse into conflicts, and then this brings the economies of both partners down. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alex.
Just staying on that theme, the two organizations I'm representing, CIBC and the Canadian Chamber here, have both been in Hong Kong for over 50 years or close to 50 years. And so that persistence that Michelle mentioned is very important, and that resilience, because over that 50 years there's been a lot of ups and downs in very different markets. But amongst that, it's to really be focused. Earlier today, some panelists have talked about how they were successful in their businesses. They were being very focused. But I'll add to that you also need to be very nimble in that focus as well, to be able to adjust to the various environments. So maybe at the beginning of this year, with all the uncertainty, it's not the best time to be deploying all your capital. But if you're nimble, perhaps there are opportunities that you can take advantage of, for example. So I think those are some of the things. But that's persistence, that nimbleness amongst the focus, those are things that I think will be helpful.
And isn't nimbleness one of the year of the snake attributes? So it might be a very timely piece of advice. So
possibly. I haven't read the horoscope yet.
Jimmy.
Thank you, CG. Sorry for missing today's earlier discussions. I know a lot has been discussed on leadership and innovations and etc. I guess apart from strong leadership and innovation, in order to be successful in today's very fast changing environment, I suppose companies and their people need to be super agile and adaptive. That's certainly inseparable from leadership and innovation, because we need organizational leaders, for example, to be able to create a desirable corporate culture that embraces change, and also maybe to develop suitable organizational structure or business processes that can facilitate strategic changes or speed up decision making, so on and so forth. So I guess being very agile and adaptive is important. It's a mentality change on the softer side, but on the harder side, it's also about creating the right setup within any organization. And then secondly, I would like to echo Michelle's point on being persistent. I guess nowadays more than ever, companies and individuals do need to have very strong resilience and grit. For example, the abilities to learn and recover from setbacks or failures. So not seeing failures as failures, but opportunities to learn and grow, and also be persistent, persevere during tough times, because in this fast-changing world, chances are, we'll face more failures than successes. So being able to persevere during challenging times, I guess, is a very important attribute that both organizations and individuals need to possess, is essential. And other than those, probably from my perspective, experience, being a bit more sustainable in whatever we do is quite important, because on the one hand, as human beings, we're all responsible to our environment, to save our planet. At the same time, on the other hand, I guess companies are increasingly demanded by their customers or other stakeholders, including creditors, suppliers, to practice ESG properly. Say, if you want to, get a bank loan or enjoy a better interest rate, you need to be able to demonstrate you are being responsible to the environment. So I guess being sustainable is no longer an option. We need to be a better environmental protector. So I guess these are some attributes, or qualities, or skills, if you like, for us to hopefully be more successful in this super fast-changing world with lots of complexities and uncertainties.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm also cognizant that I have my back to the crowd, but they've changed the chairs. They're much more comfy than the ones earlier today, and they don't swivel at all. I just want to point out, if we ignore Alex's CIBC hat, this panel is very different than all the other panels the rest of the day, because all three panelists don't really represent companies, or they're not investors or venture capitalists. I think we could very roughly describe them as facilitators, for lack of a better description, because I don't think they could be grouped together under any sort of industry term. And so with the three of you, Alex with your facilitator hat on, and Michelle and Jimmy, you can sometimes have a perspective that's a bit more global or comprehensive than someone who works in a specific sector or business. What do you see as priority sectors in the near to medium term, and what would some challenges or opportunities in those sectors be? And we'll start with Alex.
Sure. Well, I was maybe a little bit negative earlier about the confidence and uncertainty, but there's two things which are very certain. One is actually Hong Kong. It's certain. And what I mean by Hong Kong is the business environment of Hong Kong. It's very pro-business. It's very strong in terms of financing. The other certainty, at least in this market, is that China is big, and it's a huge market. The scale there is enormous. So from that perspective, I think the role of the chamber is to facilitate how we access that. How do we promote the fact that the Oasis, which is co-investing with businesses that are investing in Hong Kong, all right, in this great common law environment that is the same in the West, right, has 10 billion Hong Kong dollars available to businesses, for example, right? The other thing which we in the chamber are trying to do is to make sure that we also promote the fact that you've got 300,000 Canadian passport holders here in Hong Kong, over 180,000 Canadian institution alumni that are in Hong Kong that not only know about Canada, but know Hong Kong really well, the opportunities that are here, and know the China market and know the ASEAN market, right? And in fact, they also know and are promoting markets in Europe and the Gulf. So those are some of the certainties here, all right, amongst all the uncertainties of the world, the geopolitics, which I think are great opportunities for Hong Kong and for people that come here and that are here, right? The fact that the certainty of Hong Kong being a very low-tax environment, right? Of the fact that you can get access to over 140 banks, right? And a growing private credit industry, right? So, and of transparency and of being able to use English, for example. So these are some certainties which I think are great things about Hong Kong. And again, it's also next door to one of the largest, if not the second largest market in the world.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say the only two certain things were death and taxes, and then you sort of
trying to be a bit more
diverted away
positive
from where I thought you were going, so I was paying more attention. Michelle, to you.
Well, yes, governments play the role of facilitators, but there's one area where we go a bit further, and it also touches our mission of protecting public interest. The sector is clean energy. We've seen the Paris goals, Tokyo goals go down the drain. The Baku COP was basically a disaster. The various, the points that the number of degrees that the climate is going up is every year we break a record of the warmest year in history, and we see the economic and the social impact of climate change. LA is burning right now. We have problems of snow covers in Quebec being enough to have our hydro dams have enough energy to provide the American markets. So for us, it's a utmost priority. I won't say what climate change impact Africa has on stability, governance, and the future. So for us, it's one side where we have decided to really bring our strengths into play. It's so important that the Premier of Quebec has signed an agreement with the Premier of Newfoundland on the Churches Falls dams in the region in Labrador. And if you know history of Canada, if it weren't for the election of Mr. Trump and the upheaval in Ottawa, would have been, it's a tremendous event. It has a historical proportion because Quebec did not have to sign that agreement before 2041. But we signed that agreement giving more money to Newfoundland for our electricity to make sure that we can build new projects in order to feed and to support Hydro-Quebec's plan for the next few years. That plan is very ambitious, brings in new types of energy, and Hydro-Quebec will be looking throughout the world for expertise and various resources. So for us, it's really our top one priority.
Merci, Michel. Jimmy.
Thanks, CG. You asked about what we think are priority sectors in the near term or medium term. You may expect I say all sectors in Hong Kong are attractive, given my role.
You need to choose.
I need to choose, I know. So I guess from my perspective...
I'll let you have two if you want to have more than one.
Okay. Okay, sure. Two is perfectly fine. So I guess I'll pick financial services and innovation and technology as two more promising sectors that I see for Hong Kong in the near future. On financial services, I'm sure Alex may agree with me that Hong Kong's status as an international financial center is very robust. We're happy that Hong Kong regained our world's number 3 position as a global financial center last year. We are still a very major IPO center in the world, ranking the 4th globally last year, having raised more than $10 billion through some 60 IPO deals last year. It's also a very significant cross-border asset and wealth management center, being Asia's number 1, the world's number 2 at this moment, but actually it's forecast that Hong Kong may overtake Switzerland by 2028 to become the world's largest cross-border asset and wealth management center. So with lots of VCs, PEs, and also the numbers are growing continuously in the city. And also, it's a nice place for setting up family offices. So according to a study conducted by Deloitte last year, Hong Kong is home to more than 2,700 single family offices and also more than 12,000 ultra high net worth individuals. So all in all, I think Hong Kong's financial services industry is in a pretty good shape, and I'm seeing particularly strong momentum or energy in the asset and wealth management subsector within the bigger FS industry. On the other hand, innovation and technology is also an area I'm seeing Hong Kong presents lucrative opportunities for relevant companies around the world. First of all, under the National 14th Five-Year Plan, Hong Kong is to develop herself into an international I&T center. So it's a national policy. So we must do our utmost to achieve that. And in fact, the Hong Kong government is very committed to achieving this very objective. We have already invested more than 200 billion Hong Kong dollars in the past 10 years to hopefully promote our I&T industry more effectively, especially to boost our I&T infrastructure, our hardware, to attract global talent, to encourage R&D, and also to support startups. And at Oasis, we focus on attracting tech companies coming from 4 specific areas, namely life and health technology, AI and data science, fintech, as well as advanced manufacturing and new energy technology. And I'm seeing all these 4 areas growing super fast in Hong Kong, particularly biotech and AI, but also advanced manufacturing. Interestingly, people may not think naturally Hong Kong is a suitable place for manufacturing, but with the development of the Northern Metropolis, in particular the new Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park, this new land becoming available for setting up smart manufacturing facilities. So together with the many and varied government support programs to help new industrialization, I'm seeing global companies in this space, asking more questions, making more inquiries, showing more interest in setting up some smart factories in Hong Kong in the near future. So, in sum, I guess both the financial services sector and the innovation and technology sector are going to be two very important economic pillars for Hong Kong in the near future.
Thank you, Jimmy. Before we open for questions from the audience or for anyone who's online, but I think it's 4 a.m. in Ottawa right now, so I don't know if anyone in Canada is still online. Do any of you have any sort of final thoughts on, final thoughts on challenges and changes in global markets before we open to the audience? I'll start with you, Michelle.
Well, final thoughts. These are challenging times. The Quebec government is open to support its businesses or people willing to work with us. I have a colleague that's based in Shenzhen. If you look at other federated states, most of them are not present in China or near Hong Kong. It's our willingness to be of help in order to face those challenges, and we are facilitators. That's the great word.
Alex?
Alex? Maybe I want to just expand a little bit on what Jimmy talked about earlier about Hong Kong and all the investments Hong Kong is doing. Last week, Hong Kong Airport Authority issued $7 billion worth of bonds over 24 hours in Hong Kong and in the US. Let me ask the question, how many companies can actually do that? How many institutions can actually do that, raising $7 billion, and how many places? And that money flows back into Hong Kong, by the way. All right, flows back into Hong Kong as an investment. $7 billion. Yes, $2 billion was in Hong Kong, 4.15 billion was in the US, And then there was 436 million of renminbi dim sum that was in Hong Kong as well. So it was quite a significant fundraising that Hong Kong was able to do. So it's not just the IPO market, it's the bond market as well. And very happily, we were one of the banks that worked on it, on the banking side. But there were, to do $7 billion across 3 currencies and 2 jurisdictions, or multiple jurisdictions, investors, obviously, that's a lot of money to raise. Investors are actually very confident in Hong Kong, in the Hong Kong airport, right? To be able to put all that money here, and that tells you that markets are confident in Hong Kong. You will also know there's a company by the name of MTRC, Mass Transit Railway Corporation. They've told that they have Hong Kong dollars worth of, in the next, 5 years, 200 billion of capex that they have to spend. All right, 10 billion US equivalent of that is just to maintain the system that is the most efficient in the world right now. The rest is for investments into places like the Northern Territories, into high-speed rail, for example. That's a lot of money that will flow in to the financial industry. So going back to that 7 billion, it's worked for like over 20 banks that were involved in that $7 billion fund, right? And of that 20 banks, and it's calls all at night as well, it was at least over 150 bankers on a phone call. So a lot more than even here right now, right? So I think that financial industry, that confidence, I think is a sector, and Hong Kong, that certainty is there. And the reason Hong Kong is able to do that is, of course, because it is in this market that is next door to one of the largest in the world, which is China, and also has access to the ASEAN market, which is also quite significant. So anyways, I just thought I'd share some of those numbers which I was listening to last week.
No, thank you for that. I didn't know about the U.S. side of it. I only knew about the Hong Kong side of it. Thank you. Jimmy.
Well, I think as far as FDI is concerned, we are facing, of course, tremendous competition from global cities and economies. So at Oasis, of course, we do need, as we previously discussed, strong leadership. We need to keep innovating the way we do things, and more importantly, to go an extra mile in everything we do, be it promotions around the world, and also client servicing, in order for us to stay competitive and survive, if not flourish. Yeah. So that's important to have strong grit, as I shared, and also be very agile.
I'd just like to, thanks. I really liked your comment, Alex, about the positivity about coming to Hong Kong. I've been coming to Hong Kong and China since 2008, and my company has definitely been affected by geopolitical issues. But coming here so often, I realize the advantages of it in the big market in China. And I had to sort of put blinders on about the geopolitical issues today and politics today. Politics today, I think they go to the lowest common denominator of the people to get elected. And I had the privilege by Hong Kong Trade Development to come to the Science Park. And I can tell you, I will be opening an office in Hong Kong Science Park, and I'll do AI, R&D, and a sales office in Hong Kong, not Singapore. I'm very pro Hong Kong. The people are great, the business environment's great, and unfortunately, I love my country, Canada. We have a farm in Canada, but I will not open an AI or R&D facility in Canada. My market's China, and it's very positive, so I love your comments.
Oh, no, thank you. But another Canadian company opened up an R&D center there as well. One of the largest insurance companies, Intact, had their first R&D center outside of the world, outside of Canada in Science Park. Sorry.
One other thing, too, is I have another company, and my partners on that company are American, and they were very skittish about coming to here. but I've convinced them too that other second company will be opening an R&D facility here, and that has to do with AI and R&D totally.
Yeah, and I think one of the things which is interesting about what you just said there about Science Park and about Hong Kong is that the government's been very supportive of bringing talent into Hong Kong. So if you're hiring for an R&D center, you're going to need data scientists, etc., and you want to get the best from around the world. Right? And I think that's been one of the strengths of Canada as well. It's been very welcoming to people from around the world. So if your best data scientist is from Eastern Europe, is from the Middle East, for example, and maybe from a sanctioned country, you can still get them to come to Hong Kong. But you will have a lot of issues trying to get them into, say, the US. And I think Canada had provided or does still provide an opportunity for companies to do that. And I think that's why it's great to marry Hong Kong and Canada.
And I just want to add that Invest Hong Kong and Oasis will be very pleased to support you in setting up and growing your business, grasping opportunities in and through Hong Kong. Thank you.
We didn't plan that question for Oasis, by the way.
Are there any other questions from the floor?
Hi, wonderful discussion. To all four of the members on the panel, how do you see the current coming period, the next 4 years? Will that force Canada to more diversify its market outlook towards, let's say, Hong Kong and this region versus the US?
I'm the moderator, not in a position to answer that question.
That's why he took that role, because it was safer.
And I don't think Michelle's able to comment on that in
Well,
great
for the
detail,
province of Quebec, diversification has always been a goal of our economic policy. It's natural that doing business with the U.S. is very easy. The market I grew up 10 minutes away from the American border. So it's so easy to go to the U.S. And for a company that's already in New York, going further to Philadelphia is just marginally cheap. But we've been in Europe for years and years. But China remains our second biggest export market. So we are in China. Simply that because of those tensions, things were more difficult and politically difficult to sell to the population. The image of the relationship wasn't that positive. But what we can say is we are on in daily relationships with the authorities in China. I want to bring more relationships with the authorities here in Hong Kong to have that people-to-people relationship. Our culture is always, for us, is very important. It's a center of our international relations, basically, that we want to be present through our cultural products as well, because we are a society that's quite different than our neighbors. And by being there, by keeping the dialogue going, we hope to help contribute to lessen the tension and eventually, very soon, we hope, bring back normalization of the relationship.
I guess, in business school, we're taught that you need to diversify your investments, and that in the long term will give you some of the best returns. However, places like Hong Kong, you can't diversify away from China. Canada, likewise, you can't diversify completely away from the largest market next door to you, right? So, yes, a degree of diversification would be warranted and necessary, but that's a huge market, right? So, I think for Canada, it's to make sure that it is being competitive to that market and also offering its services and capabilities competitively globally. And maybe tying into bridges like Hong Kong that have affinity to the market to help it diversify and be more competitive globally. And likewise, Hong Kong's doing the same thing, right? It's trying to build its markets in the Gulf, in the ASEAN, and Europe, and globally as well, because a lot of the Hong Kong economy had also been linked to trade and business with the U.S. as well. Right, so I think diversification obviously would be good, but when practicality-wise, there are certain markets from certain places, such as Hong Kong with China, Canada with U.S., which there will be limits to that.
Thank you, Alex. We've got a flashing red light there, Jimmy, but I think we can squeeze in some comments from you before we get dragged off the stage.
If I may say just a few words to interpret diversification from my lens, I guess Hong Kong is a super connector. It may not be a huge market, but it connects you to many other international markets. And for example, we have free trade agreements with more than 20 economies, investment agreements with more than 30, double taxation agreements with more than 50. So we continue to broaden our partnerships with other economies on the globe. So it's a place where you can enjoy a lot of business advantages and also bring your business to a broader, bigger international arena. So that's the diversification I'm seeing that Hong Kong can offer.
Thank you, Jimmy. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jimmy. Merci, Michel. Your generosity in sharing your time with us today is greatly appreciated. C'est bien apprécié, Michel. And on that note, thank you to the audience for listening to us for 48 minutes when we only had 45. So your tolerance for that or going over time is appreciated as well.